Welcome to Easy AI Lab. I'm Andy. Today we're going to unpack one of the biggest shifts in AI, the move from chatbots to artifacts. For the last few years, most people have experienced AI as a conversation. You type a question, the model replies with text. Maybe it gives you code, a table, a diagram, or a plan, but then the work usually leaves the chat. You copy the code into an editor, you paste the table into a spreadsheet, you rebuild the diagram in another tool, you ask for a revision, copy again, test again, and hope the newest version is the one that actually works. That workflow feels magical for the first 5 minutes. Then it starts to feel like carrying loose papers across a workshop in the wind. Artifacts are the next step. Instead of AI only giving you an answer, the AI creates a persistent workspace, something you can render, inspect, edit, reuse, and sometimes run directly. The important idea is simple. Chat gives you words. Artifacts give you a workbench. Imagine a product team preparing for a Monday leadership meeting. They ask AI for 4 things: a dashboard, a technical diagram, a prototype, and a written brief. In a chat-only workflow, every answer becomes a separate transfer. The dashboard logic moves into a spreadsheet. The diagram moves into a documentation tool. The prototype moves into an IDE. The brief moves into a document. Each transfer creates a small risk. Formatting breaks, a dependency is missing. A number is copied wrong. The team forgets which version was reviewed. This is validation debt. The AI generated something quickly, but the team still has to prove it works somewhere else. Now scale that across a company. Every analyst, engineer, designer, and operator is generating useful fragments. But the fragments are trapped in chat messages. They are hard to execute, hard to share, hard to audit, and hard to reuse. The naive answer is just ask AI for better code. But better code in a chat bubble does not solve the whole problem. The missing piece is not only generation, the missing piece is a place where the generated work can live. An artifact is a self-contained AI output with enough structure and value that it deserves its own workspace. Think of a digital fabrication shop. The user's request is the blueprint. A simple answer can stay on paper. But if the blueprint describes something complex, reusable, or interactive, it goes through an intake gate. That gate decides, this should not stay as loose text. This needs a protected workbench. That workbench is the artifact. Artifacts usually appear when 3 things are true. First, the output has structural complexity. It might be a multi-section report, a piece of code, a dashboard, an interface, a diagram, or a small application. Second, it has contextual independence. A good artifact should still make sense outside the exact chat message that created it. You should be able to open it later and understand what it is. Third, it has iterative value. It is something you may want to edit, export, test, share, or reuse. That is why artifacts are useful for documents, code snippets, interactive components, SVG graphics, mermaid diagrams, dashboards, and technical explainers. They are not just responses, they are assets. Let's turn this into an architecture. On the left, we have the conversation plane. This is where the user explains intent, build me a prototype, summarize this system, turn this data into a dashboard. Next is the artifact generation plane. The AI looks at the request and decides whether the output should remain a normal answer or become a standalone asset. If the request is complex, independent, and likely to be revised, the model creates an artifact. Then the artifact enters the execution plane. This is the test bench. A document can be previewed, a diagram can be rendered, a UI can be inspected, a small app can be interacted with. The user no longer has to imagine whether the output works. They can see it. Around that test bench is the sandbox. The sandbox is the glass enclosure in the workshop. It allows execution and preview, but it limits what the artifact can touch. That matters, because a generated interface should not casually reach into private systems, load unknown scripts, or leak data. Finally, there is the persistence and governance plane. Finished artifacts can become reusable assets. A team can keep a library of internal tools, dashboards, templates, explainers, and prototypes. but because those artifacts can influence real decisions, they also need review, permissions, and validation. So the architecture is not just AI writes code, it is a loop. Intent, generation, rendering, inspection, revision, storage, and governance. The densest concept is the difference between a chat response and a functional artifact. A chat response is linear. It arrives as a stream of text. You read it from top to bottom. If it contains code, the code is still only text until you move it somewhere else. An artifact is stateful. It has shape. It has boundaries. It can be opened, rendered, edited, and versioned as a thing. In our workshop metaphor, the chat response is a paper instruction sheet sliding off a conveyor belt. Useful but fragile. The artifact is the object assembled on the workbench. Watch the state transition. First, the user's intent becomes a blueprint. Second, the intake gate sees that the blueprint is not just asking for an explanation. It is asking for something with structure. Third, the AI creates the artifact, a report, a dashboard, a component, a diagram, or a micro app. Fourth, the artifact moves into the sandbox. The sandbox renders it and exposes the result for inspection. Fifth, the user gives feedback directly against the artifact. Change this section, fix this flow, add this chart, simplify this diagram. Sixth, the artifact is updated, reviewed, and saved. This is why artifacts change the feel of AI work. The user is no longer managing a pile of copied outputs. The user is steering a living asset, but this also creates a new responsibility. A beautiful artifact can still be wrong. A dashboard can render perfectly while calculating the wrong metric. A prototype can look finished while hiding broken logic. A diagram can be visually clean while oversimplifying the system. That is the validation gap. Polished output creates confidence faster than it creates correctness. Once artifacts exist, organizations can build a layer on top of them. The first layer is reuse. A team can save a working dashboard instead of rebuilding it from chat history. They can fork a prototype, adapt a report template, or update an architecture explainer for a new project. The second layer is live data with controlled connectors. An artifact can become more than a static preview. It can refresh from approved sources, such as internal databases, calendars, issue trackers, or documentation systems. In the workshop metaphor, these connectors are supply lines. They bring in approved materials without opening the entire building to the outside world. The third layer is governance. Who can publish an artifact? Who can share it? Which data can it access? What needs human review before it is trusted? These questions become more important as artifacts move from experiments into daily operations. This is where domain expertise becomes the main advantage. When AI handles more of the execution path, the human role shifts. The best operator is not always the person who types the most code. It is the person who understands the business rule, the edge case, the metric definition, the customer pain, or the safety constraint. In other words, the human becomes the architect and quality inspector. So what is the trade-off? Chat only. AI is fast and flexible, but it is temporary. It gives you answers, not durable workspaces. It creates momentum, but it also creates copy-paste friction. Artifact-based AI is more powerful because the output becomes inspectable and reusable. It can turn a conversation into a document, a diagram, a prototype, a dashboard, or a small internal tool. But that power increases the need for validation. The more useful an artifact becomes, the more important it is to check its logic, permissions, data sources, and assumptions. That is the real generative UI revolution. AI is not only changing how we write, it is changing where work happens. The future of AI work is not just asking better questions, it is steering better workspaces. Thanks for watching Easy AI Lab. I'm Andy, and I'll see you in the next one.